Zeke had always been quiet, the kind of quiet that made people overlook him, but some silences hold weight. The kind forged in long hospital halls, in rooms filled with machines that hummed and beeped, louder than voices. Jonathan had seen Zeke before, sitting alone on the cold bench outside the rehab unit, always there, always watching, but he never asked why. Until the day Isla moved her leg. It happened in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, the kind with soft sunlight pouring through the therapy room window and dust dancing lazily in the air. Jonathan was crouched beside Isla, trying not to let frustration creep into his voice. She hadn't moved in weeks. Then Zeke stepped forward, softly, like he'd done it 100 times in his mind before. "You mind if I try something?" Jonathan blinked. "You did that." Zeke didn't brag, just gave a small nod. "I did it." Jonathan swallowed hard. "You really did it." Zeke's eyes shifted to the belt. Isla wore. "See, the body remembers," he said. "You just have to be patient enough to let it talk." Jonathan stared at him, a slow smile breaking through. "You're something else, kid." Zeke didn't answer. He just gently guided Isla into the next stretch. After the session, as they packed up, Jonathan crouched beside him. "Where do you go after this?" Zeke shrugged. "Around." Jonathan lowered his voice. "You got a place to sleep?" Zeke hesitated. "Sometimes." Jonathan rubbed the back of his neck. "You ever think about coming to stay with us for a while?" Zeke's eyes widened. "You serious? I got a guest room. You wouldn't be in the way." Zeke looked down at his hands. "You sure your neighbors wouldn't mind a kid like me?" Jonathan gave a short laugh. "Man, after what you've done for my daughter, they'd better not say a word." Zeke didn't answer, but Jonathan saw the wheels turning. The next morning, Zeke stood outside Jonathan's house, backpack slung over one shoulder, a rolled-up blanket tucked under his arm. Jonathan opened the door in sweatpants and a mug in hand. "Right on time," he grinned. Isla came wheeling to the front hall. "Zeke," he smiled. "Hey, superstar." Jonathan stepped aside. "Welcome home." The days that followed settled into a rhythm. Zeke got his own room, a bed with soft sheets, a desk for his sketchbook. He didn't say much, but he never missed a morning stretch with Isla. She was moving both feet now, not walking yet, but something had shifted. Her brain remembered how to talk to her legs. One night, while Jonathan cleaned dishes, he paused. "Zeke," he said over his shoulder, "you ever think about going back to school?" Zeke, sketching at the table, glanced up. "Sometimes." "You're smart," Jonathan said. "Zeke, you could go far." Zeke tilted his head. "I want to help people walk again, like my mama did." Jonathan turned to him. "Zeke, then let's figure out how to get you there." Zeke smiled. Small, quiet. "Okay." They didn't say much more. They didn't have to. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was filled with scribbles and healing and hope. One Sunday, a nurse from the Children's Medical Center walked her dog through Harrington Park. She paused near the bench under the oak tree. "Zeke!" There she saw Isla, standing. Not walking, but standing, smiling, moving her toes. Beside her was Zeke. She didn't interrupt. She just watched. Then went home and told her sister, who worked in patient services. Word spread. The next weekend, 2 families were waiting at the park bench. One had a boy with a walker. The other, a girl recovering from a stroke. Zeke looked at Jonathan. Jonathan looked back. "You don't have to." Zeke adjusted the strap on his bag. "I want to." He gave up his time with Isla that day, taught the parents how to use towel stretches, how to warm the rice packs, how to encourage without pushing too hard. and he talked to the kids, not at them. "You're not broken," he said to one. "You're just learning a different way to be strong." Isla watched it all. She didn't complain once. Later, in the car, she whispered, "I like watching him help people." Jonathan glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Yeah," she said. "It makes me feel like I'm part of something good." He smiled. By the third weekend, 5 families showed up. The next 11. A local pastor brought folding chairs. A nearby diner donated coffee and bagels. Someone printed flyers, free movement classes. Sundays at noon, Harrington Park. They didn't name Zeke, but everyone knew. A local reporter showed up. Jonathan pulled Zeke aside. "You okay with this?" Zeke looked around. The kids, the laughter, the families. "As long as it's not about me," he said. "It's about them." The article ran on page 2 of the Birmingham Sunday Post. 9-year-old with a gift helps dozens heal. In a city park. No last name, just Zeke. But people found out. A doctor offered to mentor him. A non-profit offered funding. A retired teacher offered free tutoring. For the first time since his mother passed, people didn't just look at Zeke, they saw him. But he never changed. Still laid the towel the same way. Still wore duct-taped boots. Still checked in with Isla first. The park, once quiet, now buzzed with life, with hope. It had been 9 Sundays. 9 Sundays of grass-stained mats and miracle moments. But this Sunday felt different. Zeke could feel it in the air. Even Isla was quieter, focused. When they arrived, a small crowd was already there. Folding chairs, therapists, parents with hopeful eyes. Zeke unpacked his bag, rolled out the towel, looked at Isla. "You ready?" She nodded. No smile, just determination. Jonathan wheeled her to the mat. Zeke knelt. "Same as before. We help you stand. You do the rest." Jonathan placed his hands under her arms. Zeke guided her legs. "Okay," Zeke whispered. "On 3. She closed her eyes. 1, 2, 3. Jonathan lifted. Zeke steadied. She stood, legs trembling, arms shaking, but she stood. The crowd fell silent. Isla opened her eyes. "I'm standing," she said. Zeke blinked back something in his eyes. "Yeah, you are." Jonathan let go. She stayed up, shaky, but solid. Then a step, then another, and then, because she was brave, and 6, and didn't know how to be afraid, she took a 3rd step, and fell. Jonathan caught her, laughing, crying, holding her tight. "You did it," he whispered. "You really did it." Isla turned to Zeke. "You said I would." He smiled. "I said we'd try." That night, while Zeke poured cereal, Jonathan leaned on the counter. "You know you changed everything," he said. Zeke didn't look up. "I did." Jonathan walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder. "My daughter walked today, not because of a hospital or miracle drug, because a kid with nothing showed up, again and again." Zeke nodded. "That's what my mum would have done." Jonathan's throat tightened. "I wish she could have seen this." "She did," Zeke said softly. "I think she sees everything." Jonathan wiped his eyes. "You're going to change a lot of lives." Zeke looked up. "I already am." There are people who don't have fancy degrees or shiny resumes, but they carry something far more valuable. Heart, grit, and a reason to keep showing up. Sometimes, the most broken people are the ones holding the tools to help others heal. If you know a kid like Zeke, or a girl like Isla, tell them this. You matter. You're needed. By the 10th Sunday, Zeke didn't even need to look up. When he arrived at the park, he could hear them. The rustle of mats, The shuffle of braces and walkers, the laughter, the kind that only came from people who remembered what it was like not to laugh. He walked the familiar path under the oak trees, Isla by his side. She didn't use the wheelchair anymore, not since last week. Just Jonathan's hand, held loosely, more for comfort than balance. Big crowd today, Jonathan said, scanning the gathering. Zeke nodded. Someone said a coach is coming from the college. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Football, Zeke grinned. Physical therapy program. Jonathan whistled low. Words really out, but Zeke didn't care about the attention. He knelt beside a small boy with tight fists and a nervous mother. He whispered to the boy the same thing he'd said to Isla months ago. You're not broken, you're just learning your own kind of strong. That was how the 10th Sunday began, like the others, with warmth, with movement, with hope. That afternoon, the sky darkened, clouds rolled in, the air electric with a coming storm. People hesitated, unsure whether to leave or stay. Jonathan looked to Zeke. We've got time, Zeke said simply. So they stayed, worked through the drizzle, taught a girl how to shift her weight without falling, showed a father how to massage his son's calves to ease the stiffness. It was almost poetic, the way the storm danced around them but never quite touched down. Isla stood again, this time longer. She even turned in a small, deliberate circle, her arms out like wings. The crowd clapped, not politely, but with their whole hearts. And somewhere in that applause, Zeke stepped back, looked at Isla, at the families, at the community they'd built. He knew what came next. A week later, Zeke stood in front of the dining table, fingers fidgeting at the edge of a worn envelope. Jonathan sipped coffee. Isla kicked her legs under the table, her socks mismatched, her smile wide. Well, Jonathan asked. Zeke opened the envelope. Read silently. Then again, slower. You got in, didn't you? Jonathan said. Zeke looked up. Eyes wide. Full scholarship. Youth Rehabilitation Science Program. Start next semester. Jonathan let out a whoop and pulled Zeke into a bear hug. Isla jumped up and down on the chair. You're gonna be a real healer. Zeke held the letter in both hands. It shook a little. I don't want to leave, he whispered. Jonathan crouched, voice steady. You're not leaving, you're just going forward. It came with balloons, signs, too many cookies. The families showed up early. Kids ran through the grass. Parents wiped tears before they even saw him. Zeke didn't like goodbyes, so he didn't say one. Instead, he lined up the kids, helped Isla lead them through a stretch routine. At the end, they formed a circle, hands linked. Even the shy ones, Jonathan called out. On the count of 3, say it loud. 1, 2. Thank you, Zeke. He turned away, wiped his cheeks. I'll be back, he said softly. And they believed him, because Zeke never made promises he couldn't keep. The park still filled every Sunday. New volunteers came, trained by Jonathan, then by Isla. Some of them had once been patients. Some were parents. Some were strangers who'd read about a boy with duct-taped boots and a heart too big for his frame. A mural was painted on the wall of the recreation center nearby, children stretching, standing, walking, and in the corner, small but steady, the outline of a boy kneeling on a towel. No name, just the words, "We're just learning a different way to be strong." Zeke called every Sunday from college, sometimes to Jonathan, mostly to Isla. You practicing, he'd ask. Of course, she'd say. Someone's got to keep up until you come back. He did come back. Every break, every holiday. with a new trick to teach, a new family to meet, a new kid to believe in. Because Zeke wasn't just healing others anymore. He was healing the world, one Sunday at a time.